Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chu. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chu.
Good Tuesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the February 18th, 2025 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio is where you can find us. Of course, email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There you can get Choose Views, a short version and a long version. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, driving it home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Check out our heartlandsignal.com digital platform. Lots of great stuff there, as always. All right, so it's Tuesday, and I am back, guys. I'm back. Good to be back. And first and foremost, thanks to Michelle Peltier for sitting in yesterday and helping to keep our show moving forward on President's Day. And thanks to Devin for making sure that all the wheels kept rolling. Thank you, Dev. Appreciate you. But it's good to be back, guys. And I am happy to tell you that we have great stuff to talk about this week. We got a week full of wonderful guests that will be here with us, some in studio and some that will be calling in. In fact, today we'll have Commissioner Frank Aguilar with us here in studio in the 7 o'clock hour. And economic and equity opportunity investigative reporter at the Illinois Answers Project, Binghui Huang, will be with us this morning as well. Tomorrow, our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63, Alex Thornton, Senior Director at the Financial Regulation for the Center for American Progress, Illinois Comptroller Susanna Mendoza, Elizabeth Reeves from the Public Citizens Congress Watch. And then on Friday, as always, our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast, Yolanda Androzo from the One Aim Illinois organization, and Elizabeth Beavers from Public Citizens Congressional Watch Group. So it's busy, and then we're excited to have wonderful folks with us this morning, as well as the rest of the week. A couple of clips that I think you guys will appreciate will be coming your way that Devin and I have put together that we feel you should be hearing and passing on to your folks. But right now, let's talk a little bit about from the items that are taking place in our world, and we'll get you kicked off this morning with Choose Views News on this February 18th, 2025. The Delta flight crashes in Toronto, which we've all heard now. Delta Airlines plane en route from Minneapolis crashed and overturned while landing at Toronto's Pearson Airport yesterday. 80 people on board were evacuated and 17 sustained injuries, including 2 in critical condition. The crash occurred at 2:45 p.m. local time, according to the FAA officials, amid strong winds and drifting snow in the area. The flight was operated by Endeavor Air, a Delta subsidiary, which normally handles shorter routes with smaller planes, according to the New York Times. So, kudos to the pilots and kudos to all the folks that were there to help make sure that these folks made it to safety. And for those who were injured physically, we wish them well. We have to. And those who have suffered that trauma of not being injured, survivor's guilt that may come their way, and the people who didn't, in terms of not being injured, no one died, send some good vibe to those folks, because that had to be something that you won't ever, ever forget. So there you go. Amazon workers are rejecting a union in North Carolina. Amazon warehouse workers overwhelmingly voted against joining the union over the weekend. And this is an interesting one. When I was going through this, in a decisive win for the company, that being Amazon, which has opposed efforts to organize, the warehouse near Raleigh employs about 4,700 people, with pay starting at $18.50 per hour. Organizers seeking to form a union were pushing for $30 an hour and longer breaks. Warehouse workers in Staten Island, New York, also voted to create Amazon's first union back in 2022. So I'm curious how that's going to play out because they kind of cut their nose off to spite their faces in some cases from what other things that I read on that situation with Amazon in North Carolina. HSBC has some layoffs looming amid this new focus that they're working on with the threat of tariffs looming. Major shareholders in HSBC are supporting the bank's plan to roll back its mergers and acquisition and equity businesses in Europe and in the Americas and shift its focus to Asia, according to Reuters. Part of the new CEO's George Elbney's cost-saving overhaul of Europe's largest bank, it's unclear, though, how many roles will be affected in the retreat. Broad cuts are expected to start this week, according to Bloomberg, and with more staggered rounds coming in the upcoming months. Why is that important? Tariffs. It's driving the conversation. New York Times is getting their internet AI tools in order. It's rolling out a suite of internal artificial intelligence tools for its staff, including, according to a new email that was internally circulated at the Times. The AI tools, which include an in-house summarization platform called Echo, are designed for tasks such as research, brainstorming, and writing social media copy. So we'll see how that goes with the New York Times. And last but not least, banks are retreating from DEI language. Major U.S. banks such as Morgan Stanley, J.P. Morgan, and Citigroup are easing up on public support for diversity and inclusion programs, according to the Wall Street Journal. After making a push into DEI in 2020, the Wall Street giants are now reworking language around these initiatives, with changes expected in annual reports and company policies. It echoes moves from other companies, including Ford, McDonald's, Meta, and Walmart, amid concerns around new legal risk. Those legal risks, in other words, are going to be, candidly, privileged white guys who feel like they didn't get that full stake that they should have, in their minds, deserved to have. Because why? My dad got it, so I should get it too. That's at the core of this. DEI is not it's not a conversation to be held lightly. And I want, when politicians are talking about it, as I've said before, it to be about using the words. So you're saying you don't endorse diversity, you don't endorse equity, and you don't endorse inclusion. Say it out loud. If you can't say it, then don't use the acronym. So there you go, guys. Back in the saddle, as they say, or in the seat, depending on how one looks at it. Today from 2 to 5, Joe and Esposito will be joined by Dr. John Murphy, professor of communication at the University of Illinois' Champaign-Urbana campus, Bruce Rhines, former CBS Los Angeles Deputy Bureau Chief, and Heartland Signal's Rich Eberwine, with 3 stories you may have missed from our digital newsroom, live, local, and progressive weekdays 2 to 5 p.m. That's Joan Esposito here on WCPT AM 820, Heartland Signal website, and tune in. And then tonight, speaking of tuning in, tune in to Patty Vasquez from 5 to 7, who will be broadcasting live from the Minocqua Brewing Company up in Madison's Tap Room. That's Madison, Wisconsin, by the way. And her guest will include WHBY's Outside the Box Ben Caminos, driving it home with none other than the great Patty Vasquez. 5 to 7 p.m. That's right, Monday through Fridays. WCPT AM 820, Heartland Signal website, tune in, YouTube, and Facebook. Y'all got to check out Patty. At the end of the day, and you want to get your head right, listen to Patty. And then tomorrow, as I said before, I'll be with our contributor and great friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63, and Alexandra Thornton, Senior Director of Financial Regulation at the Center for American Progress, which I'm really excited to talk with her right now. So, guys, let's take a quick break. We got calls that are going to be hitting us soon, so we want to get ourselves ready for that. But it's good to be back. Glad to be able to be with you again. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we will be right back.
Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. So I'm not going to blame the plane that went down, the Delta flight that went down on Donald Trump. That's kind of silly to do that. And I know that it's easy to take the position that we've had these numbers of flights that have unfortunately gone down. People have died and people have been injured in other crashes in the last 4 weeks since Trump was inaugurated. That's not the point you should take from this most recent incident in Toronto. What you should take from this is that our federal government and our agencies are important. And they have the reason that they're important, not just in my opinion, is historically they've kept the guardrails on this big whale of a country that could very easily get out of control. That's why, in my experience and belief and research, very simply put, we need a federal government to manage the massiveness of our country. And we need state governments for the same purpose. The challenge is in the wrong hands with the wrong intent and wrong belief system. And if you've taken too much ketamine, that's a problem. And so I'm not going to be the one to take the easy, low-hanging fruit and go, we know that the FAA is now understaffed. And so the problem is that if you go back, I'll tell you, this is go back to when Reagan was in office. You might find something interestingly similar with the air traffic controllers being laid off in that conversation. Too much to talk about in this quick moment. But my point is, more broadly speaking, is that we need to be mindful of agencies that are being shut down, carved away, and if it needs to be done, then it can't be done by someone like Elon Musk and his little muskrats. So I did a little bit of, this is where I want people to pay attention when it comes to this conversation. In the 6:30 hour, we're going to have a couple clips. We're going to talk about what the Dems are doing from a DNC standpoint and some things that are happening with what's going on in New York. The New York situation with Eric Adams is a big deal. I'm going to talk about it in a second. But I want to talk about this real quickly in this segment regarding Doge and more importantly, the people that are part of, more importantly is not the right word, more light needs to be shed on the people that are part of Doge. Now, this list of folks, I can send it to you. I can email it to you guys and all that. But I just want to read some names off. Some may ring a bell, some may not. But the point of all this is it's a question of what their experience is that is troubling beyond just them, not beyond, but along with them being, elbows deep into our Social Security information, our tax information, and all the rest, our banking information. I mean, this is the problem that we all have been talking about, somewhat in a peripheral way. But I'm going to give you some names. And this is why I always say to everyone, you've got to pay attention. Don't just follow the shining object, the bouncing ball, the shining object, whatever it is, the distraction. You got to dig in and look at what some of the other things are that are happening. So, for example, we know that Elon Musk is the quote-unquote idiot-in-chief of and I've been told to not call people stupid and idiots, but when they do idiotic and stupid things, let's just call it as it is. Musk is the big name that we all know. The second name that has become more and more convenient to use in the past 2 years, but certainly in the last year, 6 months, is Peter Thiel, Thiel. Both of those. This is a phrase that you guys can use when you're talking to your colleagues about what's happening with our federal agencies. That where you've got people that are saying, well, it's good that we have this deportation going on because we got to get rid of all the Mexicans and all that are taking our jobs. And the last part of that is a point I want to make. Taking our jobs. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, through Doge, have taken more jobs or affected more jobs in a month's time than any Mexican, Latino person, quote unquote, coming across the southern border has for the last decade. You hear me? So when you have someone in your world that says, yeah, but, Rich, come on, dude, you're getting rid of all the Mexicans that are taking our jobs and the Haitians that are taking our jobs. No, Musk and Thiel have done more damage in a month than has happened in a decade of a very stressed, not working as efficiently as it could immigration system. That's a fact. That's not hyperbole. Neither is it anecdotal. They have. So, and when I say that, they've affected jobs that are critically important to the day-to-day activities and livelihoods of so many people. I mean, how do you fire people who are part of our nuclear system, Devin, and then go, oh, my bad, we need to bring them back because we don't know what the hell we just did? So, be armed. And so the other names I want to read off to you as quickly as I can, and I can send them to you. I have a little graph that I've put together. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Andrew McCormick, Ken Howery, Chad Hurley, Roloff Bota, Russell Simmons, not the one you're thinking, Jason Portnoy, Yishan Wong, Steve Chen, David Sachs, Jawad Kareem, Gerald Stoppelman, Keith Rabois, David McClure, Scott Bannister, Luke Nosek, Reed Hoffman, Max Levchin. First of all, is anybody notice anything very, very stark and obvious in that list of people who were part of this group? They're all men, no women, one. And second, from my perspective, there's not one black person. Thank God, actually. I'm actually glad there's not a black male or female that's part of this Doge group. But here's the other part that I want to link up with. And I can send you guys the second level of my little graph I put together. The companies that they are affiliated with: Tesla, of course, Stripe, ZocDoc, OpenAI, Uber, LinkedIn, Postmates, Twilio, Lyft, Eventbrite. And this is one that you guys, and there's others, but this is one that you guys are going to be shocked by, but I wanted to put it out there so you'd know. Billionaire co-founder Joe Gebbia has joined Elon Musk's Doge team. You want to know who Joe Gebbia is affiliated with and co-founder of, in case you don't know? Airbnb. Airbnb. That's another company where one of the lead people, co-founders, is now linked up with Doge, the Doge team. Okay? So, where am I going with this? A bunch of uber wealthy white dudes and a few Asian guys are stealing your stuff. It's the truth. Someone could say, well, you're playing a race card. Get out of my face with that. The race card was never originated or played by black folks. And I got some Black history stuff I want to share with you over the course of the week. A couple of clips that I think you need to hear. But staying on point, that's who's behind this craziness. Those are the names. I'll send them to you so you can do further and deeper dives. And the companies that they're tied to. So you might want to reconsider. If you're a progressive liberal Democrat, you might want to reconsider the use of Airbnb, because I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that the co-founder, and I could give a darn about the fact that he's given to both parties. He's part of an organization that's trying to take your stuff, literally. So this whole thing around efficiencies, I don't need a billionaire to tell me what's efficient or not, particularly if they don't have experience in government and federal government, particularly in how the federal government operates and should operate, but operate more efficiently. I don't need any of these billionaires or these tech boys, more particularly, that are, code jammers and hackers that make mistakes. They're going to make a mistake that is going to cause a plane to come down. They're going to make a mistake that is going to cause a train to derail. They're going to make a mistake that is going to cause billions of dollars to not go where they need to go to sustain people's lives. Those are the things that we have to be concerned about. This Department of Government, efficiency is a bunch of garbage. We know it. But now it's time to lean into the people that are part of this. I don't need two immigrants, and this is not anything about immigrants, but two immigrants that have harm in as part of their mission. It's on. Peter Thiel is on record saying that he wants to see more that the United States should have a more autocratic and less diplomatic way of governing itself. He wants us to be more toward dictatorship. He's on record for saying that. Peter Thiel is. And just like Musk, here are two guys that have South African and in some indirect dotted line ways, they have ties to how else are we going to say it? They have ties to the after effects of Hitler. It's I'm not making this stuff up, guys. It's the truth. They have ties to that regime, maybe is a better way of putting it for those who have a soft stomach about hearing that kind of stuff. So, my point is, no matter who they've given to politically, no matter who they've supported, they're opportunists, and they're opportunists in a way right now that's messing with some of our most cherished and important pieces of our government. And those are things that are going to, and they already have, impacted people's lives in a negative way. Someone call me and tell me one thing that they've done that's impacted lives in a positive way. One thing, the masses of people, not the craven folks who want to see folks have pain and have discomfort. Show me where it is. What am I missing? And that's what, to me, is the litmus test. How many people are the actions that they're taking helping? And be able to break those down and not just give us, bless you, Devin, not just give us sort of the standard, broad stroke paint stroke of, it's going to make our country more efficient. No, I want to know specifically how their actions are benefiting large swaths of Americans versus hurting. So I won't take the easy, the easy fruit, as you will, or the low-hanging fruit, and say that planes going down and issues with planes since Trump was inaugurated are his fault. I will say that government mismanagement goes two ways, and this is a bigger level or measure of government mismanagement than the budgets that may need to be trimmed and affected in a better way. This is not the way to do it. There's nothing that any of these guys, and I'll sit in the room with all of them and ask them to prove to me how it's going to benefit America. And the excuse of it's going to take some time for the benefits to happen and for the country to see it, that's an excuse. That means they don't have a plan. They have concepts of a plan, but they don't have a plan. Clearly. So I'll sit in a room with all of them, and I'll ask the questions, and I'll make Musk talk, because I'll get in his face. See, that's the problem. Too many people are afraid of these guys. I'm not afraid of any of them. And that's the difference right now. When we talk about the difference that Democrats have to have right now, when we come back, we're going to have a couple of clips that will speak to how we need to speak to this craziness, both as elected officials and those of us who vote for them. So let's take a quick break. The number is 773 763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. Yes, it is cold out. Those of you who are heading out, whatever way you're going out, it's cold. It's in Chicago, Chicagoland area, in the upper Midwest. It's very cold. So, please be safe today. Dress warmer than normal. Don't be on your phone while you're out in public. If you're waiting for the bus or an Uber or a taxi or a ride from a friend or walking down the street, put your phone in your purse or your coat, whatever. Don't be on your phone while you're walking down the street. It's too doggone cold to be doing that. If you got to talk to somebody, find a doorway to stand in and talk to them. Don't do those things today. It's too cold. And if you're taking public transportation, just be a little bit more mindful of where you're standing and all those other things. Just be as safe as you possibly can. If you're driving, you can get your car warmed up a little bit earlier. All those things that we talk about repeatedly in this cold climate that we live in this time of year. So please, y'all, be safe. Okay. I talked about the mismanagement of what Doge can do and what they are doing. And the people who are, quote, MAGA that are in red states or that are in MAGA in blue states. Let me just put this to you this way. You can kind of look at it like this in terms of federal jobs or federal employees being cut. A lot of people don't know this. So let me try to explain it one more time, or at least give it to you one more time. 83% of the federal workforce, 83%, y'all, hear me again, 83% of the federal workforce works outside of D.C. in states all across the country, okay? And I'll just kind of go through this real quickly because I put this together, in short order. Some states like Alabama and New Mexico, the federal government is the largest employer. So for those who are MAGA that are rooting for hardworking Americans to lose their job because of government bloat, remember that those Americans that you are rooting for or want to see them suffer some, quote, pain because they're a government employee, many of those folks are your friends, your neighbors, and they're very probably family members or 1 or 2 degrees of separation from that. I said this before, when people lose their jobs, it creates financial hardship no matter where they are. It increases unemployment payouts, it reduces consumer demand, and it decreases their ability to spend, which hurts local businesses. So this is not, you unless you're selfish, blind, stupid, ignorant, willfully, all the above, you have to understand that this is not something that's just going to affect a certain number of people that are in the D.C. metropolitan area. This is going to affect people across the globe. Many of us have family members that work for a part of the federal government that could be stationed in the continent of Africa. They could be in the UK. They could be in Asia. It's going to impact them. How do you think they feel with you rooting for the Doge boys to cut federal programs, federal divisions and departments just because you got an axe to grind because you think that the Mexicans are taking all your damn jobs? Okay? This is happening on a national scale, and it will affect our country's economy. So while these Doge boys are running around saying that we're going to save billions in government spending, of which you aren't going to see a penny in your pocket, that's the stupidity and the selfishness. You're not going to see any of this money jump in your pocket. You will feel the strain as it affects unemployment. The impact it takes on our local businesses because they got to carry the weight for the tariffs as one part of this crazy action from the Trump administration. Meanwhile, there's support systems that are being cut away for them to be able to sustain themselves. So if you want to run around and be a knucklehead and say, oh, yeah, they're going to cut all this fat out of the federal government, one of your best friends down the street may very well be impacted by that. One of your church-going church members that you go to church with, said that the wrong way, one of the folks that you attend church with may have a federal position in your neighborhood that if that gets cut, he or she may be directly impacted by that. Not indirectly, directly impacted. So stop wishing for these Doge boys to succeed and have the guts to step up and push back. That's what I'm asking for. That's what I want to see. Is to have a broader sense of understanding and not just looking at what's at the arm's length, of your ability to see things, but look at how it's more broadly going to impact people. Now that I've said that, what is the fight? What is the pushback? What are we going to do to make this, to soften this pain, or potentially to have it be, to have it go away in some ways? Well, it's going to start with us taking back, as I've said last week, taking back some of these House seats. The two in Florida, District 1 and District 6, and the one up in New York, which is Elise Stefanik's. It's going to start there. And how is it going to start there? It's going to start by us making sure that we reach out to the candidates that are running in those elections and find out what we can do to help them. And I should have most of that together. Right now, I can give you some information, and I'll have this a little bit tighter tomorrow and Thursday. But we have a person running in New York that is a strong candidate. He's a farmer. His name is Blake Gedabine, and that's spelled Gendebien. Blake is the first name. And he's running for that congressional seat, that Elise Stefanik congressional seat. So I can rant about something, but I also want us to have a plan, or at least know that there's going to be some action that we take. Let's start by winning back the House. Okay? Let's start by winning back the House. I'll have more information on the Florida, the Democratic, bless you, Devin, more information on the Democratic candidates that are running in Florida for those two seats in the 1st and the 6th district tomorrow and the next day. So right there, New York's 21st congressional district, one held currently by Elise Stefanik. Let's go get that seat and these two others and have some way of creating a firewall to push back against these knuckleheads. All right. My man Devin's got the sniffles this morning. Dev, let's go to a couple quick callers. Let's go to our good friend Brett out in Iowa. Brett, good morning and welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Richard. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
I was wondering, it seemed to me like you might have left your red hat at home today.
My red hat?
Hey, you were banging on him. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
I know, man. I know. How are you? Are you on the road today, or where are you today?
Yeah, we're headed west, going out to Salt Lake City.
Okay.
So I'm in Iowa, so I'm just a little west of Iowa City, I guess.
Gotcha. So what's going on, man? What do you got to talk to us about today?
I've been thinking about this whole education department, how they want to push everything back to the states. Isn't that going to increase everybody's state taxes? Eventually. And push them through the roof?
Eventually.
I mean, but who does it get hurt most? I mean, disproportionately, the red states are the ones that really receive most of the money, right?
It is.
I mean,
that's not a guess. That's a fact.
Sure. I mean, so.
And here's the other thing about that, Brett. It's not, and it's not just that they receive more money in real dollars, but proportionately they receive more money because the population of a lot of the states that you're about to drive through or the direction that you're headed have lesser populations, but they get federal dollars that are sometimes 6, 7, 8, 10 times more than another state would get just by virtue of their population. So they get a higher amount of dollars per student than a blue state would get. And they're putting less into the federal budget, but they're getting more out just with education alone. And the farm states are particularly ones that are affected by that. But yep, they're the ones that are yelling loudest to say we got to get rid of the Mexicans because they're taking our jobs.
Yeah, sure. Just asinine. It seems like everything he's doing is hurting his supporters. To me, I don't know. It's just really bizarre. So I just
this is a classic example, Brett. I know you've heard this phrase before of someone telling you that it's raining, but it's something else that's happening.
Right, or voting against your best interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to hear your voice, man. I'm glad you're well.
Yeah. Thanks for taking my call. Enjoy your day.
Will do, and you stay safe on the road, man. Be well. Thanks, Brett.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right.
Richard. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, Brett, for the call. I'm just trying to reload with you guys. A day away, and here we are. But this is how do I want to position this maybe differently for those in the cheap seats? We know what some of the problems are. We know what some of the issues are, and they're right in front of us. And Doge is it's not the shining object. It's happening. So repeating again, wash, rinse, and repeat for us. Let's start with what we can take action on, and that's to work hard to try to get these 3 seats. That's a game changer, bigger than people realize. And my hope is that those candidates are reaching out to people that are voters that didn't vote in their districts in the federal election in November, and we can get those people out. And if we can get those people out to vote, then we're going to be in a much better position to get those seats. And yes, I know that those districts in Florida are red. I know that, and we can't count on the people there that are red voters to flip. That's not the hope. The hope is to get the people out that didn't vote, that are impacted now and going to be impacted further by this administration. So that's the start. 1 and 6 in Florida and Stefanik's in New York. That's where the huge opportunities are for us right now. So throughout the course of this week, I'll keep working to get you guys more information, numbers, and where to go and all that good stuff. So that those are 3 seats that we can get. 21st in New York, 1 and 6 in Florida. Dev, let's take a quick break. Guys, the number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Let's go to our good friend Karen here in Chicago. Good morning, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Out here on the main streets, we call what the MAGA voters sell for the okie doke. They fell for the okie doke.
Yes, they did.
And immigrants, migrants are not taking American jobs. Period. Full stop. Unless those jobs are getting out in the hot sun picking lettuce.
Yeah.
Or little pay and or running the risk of having your wages stolen from you by your employer. So that has always been BS, and unfortunately too many people have fallen for that. But as far as those 3 races, I encourage everybody to call the DNC at 202-863-8000 and tell them they must put money into those races because we can stop some of the bleeding and some of the damage that's being done. It will allow us to have investigations. It will allow us to take back some of our power. So I highly encourage everybody to call the DNC. We have a new DNC chair. They need to be out in the media talking about these races and how important they are.
Yeah.
So again, 202-863-8000. And I want people to take part because our local media was not really reporting it this way. Hundreds of Chicagoans and people from the surrounding areas showed up yesterday downtown, many at the Bean and many at Federal Plaza. I was at Federal Plaza. And we marched and converged in the little area across from Trump Tower. I'm not great at guessing jelly beans in a jar, but if I had to venture a guess, I would say we had a minimum of 600 people.
Great. That's
that converged to that spot. So, and this is 10-degree temperatures, 2-0, and 2 below zero wind chill, and I felt every bit of it. So this is what democracy looks like. This is what activism looks like.
Yeah.
So people are paying attention. I want people to take heart and take hope in that. I encourage everybody to do your part, whatever it is. You don't have to come out in 10-degree weather. There are many of us that'll do it for you, but there are ways to fight this, and fight it we must. So
yeah, good
anyway,
point.
I just wanted to. Anyway.
No. I'm glad you reminded folks of that, and most definitely kudos to you for being out there. But here's the part that you guys have to take away from what Karen said about whether it was 600, 6,000, or 600,000 people out. It's taking action that matters, because there's two sides to that. There's the impact of the voice being heard, but it's also we feeling like I'm not just sitting watching this train go by, this horror show go by, and not doing something. And then when you find that there are more like-minded people than you realize, you understand that there are more of us than there are of them. And that's the other side of getting involved. And I don't mean, to Karen's point, going out in 10-degree weather may not be your thing, or you're even able to do that. But find ways, connect with people that are doing stuff so that you can feel like you're part of something that's doing something. And so that's the other part of the message of protesting, whether it be physical at an event, or it be making the phone call and calling the number. Because and I'll repeat the number again, guys, 202-863-8000. Call the DNC and say, look, y'all, put some money behind these races in Florida and New York so we can win back these 3 seats. So
absolutely.
Cool.
And I had a couple people saying, like, well, what good does protesting, getting out on the streets and protesting, there are other things to do. And I'm like, I'm all about the yes and.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, though, and this is why I do think that it is important for people to get in the streets if they can. Because we are getting booed around the world, okay? Our national anthem was booed at a hockey game, okay? So if that makes you upset, if that makes you uncomfortable, then show up to these protests so that we can show the world that we're not all about this. And understand this, too. They're not booing us.
They're not booing our players. They're not booing
our players. They're booing Trump, Elon Musk, and this terrible, terrible cast of characters that are trying to destroy our country and are effectively destroying our country, undermining the agencies that we rely on. We have the CDC being gutted while the bird flu is on the rise.
And measles is spreading across southern Texas. Meanwhile, that we're cutting the groups that are there to help, prevent these, or at least corral these illnesses. And then we have RFK Jr. saying that that the CDC is this criminal organization that's hurting people, and USAID, I should say, are hurting people across the globe. Meanwhile, there are people who are dying that need the support from what the organization is designed to do. So that's why you're protesting and taking action, guys, is important.
That's right.
Karen, I got to try to squeeze in another call before the top of the hour.
You got to go. I know. Thank you for taking my call, honey.
Thanks for the reminder.
Thanks, honey.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Dev, can we squeeze in John real quickly? Hey, John, good morning and welcome to Choose Views.
Yeah, good morning. It's not as cold here as it is over there.
Well, we know because you're in Los Angeles, so why you got to be that way, man? Come on.
That's right. I was born this way anyway.
What you got to say?
That is. That Stefanik person was a bully, and I'd like to see her gone. What's the name of the guy you mentioned would run against her?
Sorry. Let me just give me a half a second because I had it on my other feed. Blake. His first name is Blake, and his last name is spelled. Hold on. G as in girl. ENDEBIEN.
Well, anyway, it sort of rhymes with spine, and a good slogan for him is "Got a spine, vote for whatever his last name is."
Get a bind.
Yeah, Woodbine, whatever. But anyway, I'm concerned about the future of voting in this country with this Papa Trump talking about, this may be the last time they have to vote for president.
Yeah. No, I had a conversation with a good friend about that this weekend.
Yeah. What did you find out with your friend?
Well, the conversation was really focused more on how do we what energy do we put behind if and what impact Musk had on the election, and not getting into the conspiracy conversation, but what impact was there in terms of future elections, whether they be some of these off-year elections, if you will, or special elections. What did they really do? What did they impact? And then looking into the future as well. So that was the conversation. We didn't come to a conclusion. We came to we need to be looking at this and taking it somewhat seriously, so that we understand what we're up against.
Well, I'm not a tin hat wearer, but I do think that to deny any potential conspiracy is nothing but putting your head in the sand. So I don't. Whenever anybody talks about conspiracies in a derogatory manner, the conspiracy theories, I feel that is a put down, and it's an insult.
You're saying too to talk derogatorily about
you yourself. You yourself just talked about, disparagingly saying, I'm not talking about conspiracy theories or anything. Well, conspiracies exist.
Right.
And to deny it and not theorize about it is just putting your head in the sand.
Well, let me be perfectly clear. What I am saying is I do agree that, and I'm not agreeing with you because I need to agree with you. I am one that has said that there are conspiracies and there are actions that are taken that let those conspiracies bear themselves out. Specifically with this election, most recent election, I have said that some things don't make sense. And I'm not going to go down the conspiracy path. I'd rather have evidence to back up what I believe. There's a difference there, because I don't know what the conspiracy is, but I do know that some things do not make sense from this last election. And the work that we need to put in is to find out what that is. Now, as it relates
hopefully the future elections will still continue and better than they have been. That's for darn sure. Wow.
Anyway. Without a doubt. I think that's the big concern, and that's that's part of the conversation that we had this weekend is how are future elections going to be handled if, in fact, there was some tinkering, some messing around, some garbage that took place on November 4th. And I think to your point, we would be stupid to put our heads in the sand and say that nothing happened. The question is, what did happen?
You heard about Greg Palast. You know about him. You know him?
Voter suppression. We've had Greg on the show a number of times. Voter suppression is. Go ahead.
Same thing. It's rigging. It's just another way of rigging the vote. Okay. So, when Trump talked about rigging the vote and Giuliani, the whiner, talked about rigging the vote for them, against them, well, they know what they're talking about because they do it.
They were projecting in many ways.
Yeah, that's the word, projection.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm my dog is yakking.
I can hear that in the background. We appreciate your call, John. Stay safe in that warmness. We'll talk soon. All right, man. Be well. All right, guys, coming to the top of the hour, and hopefully we're going to have one of our guests with us this morning, who is one of our local commissioners as part of the Cook County Commissioners Group. Frank Aguilar will be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. But for now, we'll take a little bit of an early break just so we can get everything in. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Welcome back to Choose Views, guys. 773-763-9278. It is Tuesday, and it is cold out. We just heard some of the weather in certain parts of the upper Midwest with wind chills reaching 60 below. Here in Chicago, we are already 4 below zero, and I would say that that's regular temperature, so wind chill is probably going to push that down even more. At least the sun's out, and it's not raining, and it's not snowing, so that's a good thing. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com to our digital platform. We have some wonderful clips and posts that are there, articles and posts that you guys will want to check out and review. And as I always say, pass along to someone that you think can benefit from the information that we have there and the hard work that that our folks put in at Heartland Signal. So listen, we talk about things nationally oftentimes, and we have our local folks that are greatly important to what we do here in Chicago and the Chicago metropolitan area. And with us in studio this morning is Cook County Board Commissioner from the 16th District, and that would be none other than Frank Aguilar. Good morning, Frank. Welcome to the show. I should say Commissioner.
No, it's just Frank is good. Good morning.
How you doing?
Real good.
You made it in, huh?
Yeah, it is cold out there.
It is cold out there. Yes. There's no joke about it. You get in the car. If your car is parked outside, you get in and you get
warm it up right
away, and you sit there still and tight. So glad you were able to make it in. One of the things that you guys don't know about Frank is he's been doing this for a while. He has a pretty good understanding, not just as a Cook County Board commissioner and working on different committees, but as a representative of folks in the community. Tell everybody about your kind of, as I say, ascent to where you are now as a Cook County Board Commissioner.
Well, I've been involved in politics since I was young.
That's what I'm talking about.
I lived in Cicero most of my life. Started as a union organizer at the Central States Laborers Union. I used to organize unions back in the 80s. At the tail end of the labor movement, so I used to go undercover factories, and I melted plastic, I melted steel, I've cut vegetables and organizing unions through the inside.
Right.
And was a business agent for the union.
Right.
And that started, I guess, my political career without even knowing it. I was starting one.
Right.
I helped Jimmy Hoffa Jr. run for president. There's the Hoffa Hogan.
I remember. I'm old enough to remember.
And they wanted a few Latino organizers, and there was very few of us there.
Yeah.
So we put a campaign for him, and the Teamsters borrowed us.
Yeah.
To do some campaigning for him. So But that's basically my background. Before that, I was a seminarian. I was at Loyola.
Yeah.
So, yes,
So what's it like now? Our Cook County, Cook County, for those who don't know, is the second largest county in America, behind Los Angeles County, which means that it carries a lot of weight on a lot of different levels, both not just politically, but in terms of population, in terms of the influence that so many people in our community don't know about. So your time as a commissioner, what would you say have been the top things that you've learned about the influence of the Cook County Board of Commissioners?
Well, we have a lot of responsibility. We're 5 million people in Cook County, and over 300 suburbs, including Chicago. We manage the health hospitals and the courts, the jail, the sheriff's department, the clerk's office, just a lot of agencies under the county, and then we provide funding for our municipalities. And it could go from projects to infrastructure, roads, projects that some mayors may have, or some aldermen or the mayor. So a lot depends on our funding and our management at some of these places. We also manage one of the largest forest reserve systems in the world, probably. We're very proud of it. So there's a lot that's involved in maintaining those. There's the tax. You heard about tax property, and that has a big issue. Lately.
Yeah.
But we manage a lot of things, and at the same time, we got to make sure we hear our constituents, see what their needs are. So a lot of folks, they hear of congressman and the senator and their mayor, but you don't really hear about what a commissioner does.
Right.
There's different levels of government. You get the local, government,
right,
which is the mayor and aldermen and trustees. Then you have the state representatives and senators. Then you get the federal, Congress and senators. Well, where does commissioners fall in there? So we kind of I'm a commissioner. I'm before the state, before the feds, and before the state. So I'm in between.
Right. Well, and that's what I really appreciate about something you said in terms of our forest preserves. I mean, we have one of the broadest in terms of land mass forest preserve systems, and not really other areas call them forest preserves, but we have a system that is it functions well. You guys do a really good job of making sure that our forest preserves are clean, they're welcoming, they're inviting, and they are sustaining to our environment. And
absolutely. When
we had Commissioner Preckwinkle on a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that she talked about is how important our forest preserves are from a utilization standpoint in terms of people walking and using them that way. And I've had a number of people that have said to me, I'm going to be walking the forest preserves now. I mean, sometimes you don't think about what's right there, but also the environment. And that's one of the things I wanted to get with you on is how important the forest preserve system inside of our county is to our environment.
Well, besides there's a lot of activities that they can do, like kayaking and fishing and picnicking, but it's important. Especially, it was very I have to confess, I rarely went to the forest reserve when I was younger.
Yeah.
Maybe picnicking, but lately I've been going over in the summer almost every week. It's experiencing nature.
Yeah.
And it took a very important part during COVID. We had an increase of families of people going to the forest reserve, because you could, if you were during COVID season, when it was a pandemic, you were told not to go in sections. Like the restaurants were closed.
Right.
Very social places were closed. So the best place you could be at is outdoors.
Yeah.
And be out in the sun. So we had a good increase and a good traffic with our forest reserve. So that helped during the pandemic. People went out instead. They couldn't go to their local restaurant or concerts or even church.
Yep.
But you can go to the forest reserve and experience nature.
Yeah. And do all those things. You can have a cookout in a forest preserve. You can have activities. You can, quote unquote, fellowship, whatever your faith may be. And that's one of the things that I saw happening, quite a bit. I'm a little bit of a golfer. And I remember going to, not to play more, but I went to the driving ranges that are tied to some of the practice facilities more, because it was outdoors and it was the ability for me to take them on. Lots of people love walking and taking strolls through our forest, biking through our that's another big one. Talk about that.
I started biking too. So I have a Schwinn, and I haven't used it in years. And I started using it now. So kind of like I discovered, hey, there's bike trails. They go pretty far.
Yeah.
It's just when I was bicycling to the forest, there's so much to see.
Yeah.
There's so many species of animals.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of it.
You're right up on something. Wait a minute.
You stop by and look. You just take a look at the horizon of the rivers and the forest, and listen to the birds.
Yeah.
But it's very reflective. It's very nourishing.
Yeah.
Experiencing nature.
Without a doubt. Let's talk a little bit about some of the two biggest issues right now that in Chicago and the metropolitan area are targets for, and that gets into the conversation around deportations. At the same time, the conversation around federal funding. But talk a little bit about, if you can, to the extent that you can, how you're trying to navigate the deportation conversation that we're having right now. What are how's this impacting you, maybe personally and professionally at the same time?
Well, there's an enormous amount of fear. I live in a very large immigrant community district, mainly Cicero, Berwyn, Melrose Park, Summit, North Lake. And I eat out a lot, you know, and a lot of friends that own restaurants. And when that was announced that they're going to go out and deport people, like, again, enormous a lot of fear. Many people didn't show up to work. Kids didn't show up to school. Parents were scared. So it caused a bit of a chaos. So before the president took office, about a month before, my office had a training, about 40 different community-based organizations on Know Your Rights. And I have to credit the Resurrection Project that kind of spearheaded it for me. And I had it at the Teamsters. My next tournament, I have a Teamsters Union Hall. And I couldn't fit the folks in my office, so I had to use their Union Hall. And I had quite a bit of over a couple hundred people show up. And we had trainings, train the trainer.
Right.
And we have a large coalition with other elected officials. They did the same thing, and then we got a coalition with ICER, the Illinois Coalition of Immigrant and Refugee Rights, Rincon. I can just name a few. Paso, a lot of nonprofit agencies, community-based organizations. We got together. The structure was there already.
Okay.
You know, it was developed back in 2016. We just had to awaken it up and build that safety net. So we started with this Know Your Rights campaign and inform families, folks, what they have to do. They have rights. Many undocumented residents didn't know they had rights, and they do, civil rights.
That are built into our Constitution.
Exactly.
Irrespective of where you came from. It's once you're here, we've got this thing that says, all right, we're going to do our best to make sure that you're safe and protected, and here's what the law says.
Exactly. We use the law as a weapon against any injustice. So we started this campaign, and I had a good a Facebook Live, and I had professionals just alerting people what to do. Our campaign was, I would say, successful because the person in charge, I guess they call him the czar. I don't know why they call him the czar.
We're going to get to him in a second.
He complained. So I went to Chicago, and they're hiding and blah blah. Well, you know what? They used the law.
Yeah.
We didn't tell them to hide.
Right.
We just tell them what their rights are.
Yeah.
And I guess that bothered them. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I'm gonna keep it clean, Frank. But I'm sure that you and I were sitting with the bottle of beer and a cigar, we'd have some fancy words that we could use.
Yes.
But we're gonna keep it clean, y'all. So the person who he's speaking about is Tom Homan, this so-called border czar. And it's the minute that you said that, I had already written something down that I want to get to, because I'm concerned for folks like you that are in a role as a Cook County Board Commissioner and others that are working to make sure that these alliances are there and people know that they have rights and how to exercise those rights. And I just have to ask you, so he just came out over the weekend and said that he was going to go after ALC, Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for talking to people about their rights. Well, part of being an elected official is to do just that as a representative of the people. So help me in your mind where you are with that.
She's a brave woman. I admire her. Well, bring it on. I mean, we're not doing nothing illegal. We're just informing people of their rights. Yeah. This is the United States. I mean, the Constitution is probably a brilliant piece of literature. Yeah. That they developed over 200 years ago. Yeah. So what's wrong with that? If he doesn't like it, it's just too bad. I mean, that's...
Well, one of the things that I'm really proud of for folks like you, Frank, as a commissioner, and Ms. Preckwinkle and all the rest, and governor, other state officials, our mayor of the city, going back to COVID, I've said this and I'm going to say it again. You guys that were in those roles, were it not for you and your leadership, COVID would have been much more damaging to our community and to our state. I applaud you. I applaud the governor. I applaud Ms. Preckwinkle. I applaud our mayors that navigated. And y'all don't agree on everything, and we know that, and that's cool because then we actually get something done when we don't agree on everything, because we find out what's the real best thing for all of us.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't
but y'all got
handbook.
Y'all got stuff done when it came to COVID.
Yes.
Which was so incredibly impressive. And here we are again in this next crazy phase of, the Trump administration doing crazy, stupid, borderlining illegal things. But you guys have come together again.
Yes.
And said, not here, not on our watch, and not through us. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys have had to navigate an imperfect scenario and a lot of brain, a lot of thought, but then to say, we have to come together.
Well, we just have to do the right thing for the people of the county, to protect them, inform them. And like back in COVID, and with this immigration issue, it's not a cookbook that says do it yourself. I mean, we learn as we go along. And there's a problem, we tackle it. We come together. And in other areas, we may disagree in other issues, but when it comes to, we feel threatened. Mm-hmm. So COVID was a threat. Now these deportations are a threat. I understand we're still going after the criminals. Fine.
Yeah.
Who wants them? If they're a threat to our society, take them. But leave the working folks alone. So that's where we were focusing more on family, on children, working folks.
Yeah.
Undocumented residents generate billions and billions of dollars. Like he's like billions and billions, like he says it.
Yeah, I know.
They generate billions of dollars in our economy, and they don't receive very little to no benefit at all. In my district alone, undocumented residents generate over $400 million. And they do the work that Americans don't want to do.
Right.
They cook in restaurants, they sweep, they mop, they do all the grunt work, clean bathrooms, the landscapings, just hard labor work that, and I being a former union organizer, most of the labor force in our country are immigrants.
Yeah.
And they do the hard work. They make sure that your food's on your table, vegetables, make sure that the hospitals are clean
and
disinfected.
This is the thing too. When you say that, it's one of those comments that have been out there that the right has used, unfortunately, with precision, and that is that the Mexicans are taking your jobs, the immigrants from the southern border are taking your jobs, blah 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 blah. And so I look at that and say, if they were, they're doing a pretty damn good job of the efficiencies in those jobs. And I go there just to make a point. Okay, if that's the case, they're doing a pretty good job of it. So why do I want to mess with that if it's not negatively impacting our communities? And I will always stand on that because I think that's the truth.
Well, like COVID, immigrants were in the front line of COVID, of the infection.
Yeah.
Cleaning hospitals, cleaning schools, cleaning buildings.
Yeah.
Exposed to the virus, and they got it done.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk into a clean hospital, thanks to these immigrants who keep it clean.
And and folks got to understand this. Listen, everybody's. One of the things that Frank said that has to be repeated over and over and over and over again daily is community and alliance. We all know, if we're being honest, that all of us of all communities make this thing work.
Yes.
Whether you're Mexican or other Latino communities, whether you're Black and other African, Black American and other African immigrant.
Yes.
Continental countries, if you're from other parts of the world and you've migrated to the United States, we all make this thing work.
Yes, and we have Afro-Mexicans in Veracruz.
And by the way, for those that don't know, you should know. You should look at the as we're in Black History Month. That touches all communities.
Yes.
And the history touches all. And I say this I've been saying this every week. My Black History moment every week, Frank, has been Black history is American history.
Exactly.
Latino history, Mexican history is American history.
Absolutely.
And y'all need to stop lying to yourselves about not having recognitions of histories of our communities. Because that's a slap in the face, whether you know it or not, to your own country. But that being said, that's a cigar and glass of beer conversation from me and Frank.
They should listen to a speech given by Ronald Reagan, a Republican. his last speech as president of the United States about immigrants. So they can look it up.
Yeah.
I really tell my, especially people who are very conservative, listen to his speech.
Yeah.
And he talks about the vitality and the contributions that immigrants have brought to this country. That's who built this country.
Yeah.
You know, slaves built it back, brought it in, and then immigrants came afterwards. And they've contributed largely to our economy, culture.
Right.
I mean, just name it. We're a melting pot, and we're forgetting that.
We do.
Unfortunately, we're forgetting it.
And let's talk a little bit about the conversation around federal funding issues, because I know that, on the state level, we've got a lot of things that we sometimes what's the word I want to use, Frank? We look at blue states and red states and how much money blue states provide to the federal budget and that get back versus what red states provide to the federal budget versus what they get back. As a county commissioner, let's talk about how you've been navigating what these cuts are and how they are going to impact us.
Well, there is a this critical component federal funding that we received, and we're watching. We're very concerned about it. We're collaborating with different levels of government, federal, state, local. We have been very thoughtful. Our ARPA funding money that we have to spend by 2027. The president in her budget, she's did a good job making sure that there's enough funding for the next couple of years. So managed to maybe cut back a few areas, make some difficult decisions, but stretch the money that can lapse over and continue some of the programs, especially when it comes to healthcare, housing, and serve the most vulnerable. So that was her priorities. She's done a very good job in the last over 10 years. I mean, it's a $9.5, $9.9 billion budget, and we haven't raised no taxes in the last over 10 years. I mean, I have to really credit her, President Tony Porprenko, did a good job in making sure that she focuses on what's the real needs in our community, priorities, the most vulnerable, and keep a balanced budget without putting the burden on the taxpayer.
Right.
Takes a lot of knowledge and experience and a lot of patience to do that, and a lot of conversations with department heads. So you got to give her a lot of credit. We're keeping an eye on it, and there is a concern. And I read somewhere that some of the red states were cut back on their education system. So in the red states, well, deal with it now.
Yeah. What do you think about this thing, Frank? And I know there's so many things that we will talk about, and we will have you back again maybe next month. But you've heard this. Some of the area. There's some areas in Illinois that have been teased with the idea of becoming part of the state of Indiana. You've heard that circling out there. Talk about that a little bit.
Always, we're going to be part of Indiana. We're going to be part of Mexico. We're going to be part of Canada. There's always talk like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt it very much. I think it's just an expression of anger.
Yeah.
And it goes away.
Yeah.
Even some of my mayors in Cook County talk about, we're going to annex, this little town away from Cook County, and you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just they're just venting. I mean, we're going through some serious situations now with our federal government. Some concerns, cutbacks. They might be probably coming. Hopefully not in areas that we really need, like healthcare, education, some of the basic needs. He's trying to change laws that have been, debated for the last 200 years. I mean, look, it took 200 years to put the laws that are in place right now. They didn't just come about.
No.
Presidents did not just come up with, let's do this executive order and change this law. Going through Congress, went through the process. This individual is just putting out these executive orders. Doesn't like it, put executive order. Denying birthright to being an American. I mean, that's very un-American.
Very.
And then her spokesperson said and I can quote this because she does this. She says this. she said that the birthright is unconstitutional, being a citizen. Well, any lawyer that accepts the denial of birthright citizenship should be disbarred.
Yep.
It says it clearly in the Constitution.
Nope. It's not vague. It's clear.
It's clear.
It's very clear.
So, things like that, and then his fight with Canada, with Mexico, with China. I understand. Keep the tax dollars in the United States, and put priorities in our country. But there's a way. A leader establishes a bridge with countries, communication, and you come up with mutual benefits for both of us. It's a shame that he's caused tension and enemies in a very short time.
Yeah. What do you think? Again, I'm not one to put people on the spot about things, but I do want to get your observations on this. As you go forward in your role as commissioner, what do you think are going to be your top items that you want to get done and make sure that you're leaning into and can become effective with?
Well, when I first came aboard back in 2020, that was the height of COVID.
Yeah.
Besides COVID being the top of the item, I made it. I'm a precinct captain. I like going door to door and events and just talk to folks. That's where I get my information. Talk to the people who are living and renting apartments, paying the mortgage, sending the kids to school. That's where I get my information, and I keep very close conversations with the mayors. Infrastructure, flooding is a big issue. Mm-hmm. The biggest investment in residents making Cook County is their home, and when you get these major floods, if a storm comes, people just cringe. Yeah. And just the damage that is caused on these houses. I mean, they lose value, but there's a backlash to that. There's not just the flooding and the damage that the water causes in their basements. It also it causes mildew, mold and mildew, bacteria, which can affect your lungs, cause pulmonary diseases. So there's a health issue involved with flooding. So flooding is a big issue. Infrastructure, economic development, support small businesses. Mm-hmm. And going back to immigrants, a lot of immigrants own their own businesses. I know several that are undocumented that own grocery stores, restaurants, and they employ hundreds and hundreds of people. They contribute, tax dollars. So support our small businesses. That's the backbone of our neighborhood economy.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where I see this administration attacking. It's not just attacking our immigrant community. It's attacking our economy.
It is.
The fabric of our economy.
There's no doubt about that. Last question or thought. What do you, if you're putting out a thought to people that are concerned, whether they be someone that's in the immigrant communities per se or not, just in general, people that are supporting progressive democratic thinking, what's your words of encouragement or words of I guess let's just say encouragement to give to folks as we wrap up?
Every time I wake up, before I go to work, I always tell myself, what am I going to do today to improve someone's life? Whether it's seeing a homeless person on the street, buying them a drink, sandwich, feeding them, or helping someone, whether it be, doesn't matter how small their problem is or how big. When a person is facing a problem, it's a big problem for that person. It may be a little one for you, but it's big for that person. Mm-hmm. Maybe just listen to them. That could be just, listening could be just good enough. They want somebody to talk to. Mm-hmm. So that's my philosophy. What am I going to do today to make someone's life a little better than yesterday? And that's the beginning, sense and mindset, and make things happen for your community, for your constituency, and make life a little better. They call that progressive. Well, yes, it's progressive. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing
trying to make someone,
it.
Our job as public servants is to make people's life better, better than yesterday. And that's our job. Listen to them, what their needs are.
Yeah. Frank Aguilar, Cook County Board Commissioner in the 16th District, one of our local folks that's having a huge impact on our community, immediate community surrounding, and frankly, the nation because of the impact that our area has on the rest of the country. So, Frank, thanks for being with us this morning. Appreciate your wisdom and your effort and your commitment to the community.
Well, thank you very much.
Good to have you. We'll have you back soon.
And stay warm.
Oh, no kidding, you guys. Okay. You heard what Frank said. Stay warm. We're going to take a quick break. Number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Thanks. Shout out to Laura and Brett and all you other folks, Bob, that have sent texts this morning. Haven't been able to get through and read all of them, but I can see that you guys have sent me information, so we'll definitely try to circle back to that. Great to have Frank with us this morning, and he's one of those local fighters that we have here in the Chicago metropolitan area. Specifically, he's a Cook County commissioner for the 16th District. Also here in Chicago is a voice that's talking about something that I think is important as we look at our neighborhoods and parts of the community, parts of the surrounding community that need an economic jolt, if you will. And with us this morning is Binghui Huang, who is the Equity and Economic Opportunity Investigative Reporter at Illinois' Answer Project. That's a lot. That's a big title, Bing. But good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you for having me.
So I got to tease you for a minute. When someone says, "Okay, so what do you do?" You just have to say, "I'm a reporter," because your title is just like long.
Right, and it could mean anything, right?
Right.
So it's also pretty broad, so yeah.
Thank you for being with us this morning, and I heard you, I'm sure you probably cut a little bit of the interview that we just did with Commissioner Aguilar, and one of the things that he talked about is the importance of community and alliances and ways to strengthen our communities with economic opportunity, and that's right in your wheelhouse. So take a moment and just share with our listeners a little bit about the work that you do, and let's talk about some of the current projects that you see are important to our community.
So I cover sort of economic development is definitely a big part of what I cover, and for the last 4 months, I've been pretty focused on this development that's coming on the southeast side of Chicago. And, that's been my focus. But, I've also been keeping an eye on how neighborhoods been changing across Chicago. When there's money and investment, it's a good thing. But at the same time, for people who live in that community, oftentimes they feel like they're excluded from this investment, from the changes. And instead of being kind of lifted up by it, sometimes they, in the past have been pushed out by it. So, of course, the focus on this new project is a ton of money. It has potential to be really big for that neighborhood. And the community's kind of seeing what's happened in the past, saying, when this comes online and becomes a big community-changing force, we want it to be a positive force for us. We want to be included in all of those positive changes.
So what the project that Bing is talking about, you guys, is how quantum computing could shape Chicago's south side, specifically southeast side of the city of Chicago. So let's talk about what that promise could look like. What does quantum computing look like, and how this part of Chicago could be, in some people's mind, the next Silicon Valley type of project?
Yeah, so there's a lot of promise there, but nothing is guaranteed. So quantum computing is like a revolution in computing. So if it works, which a lot of people think it will in the next few years, although some people think it's going to take way longer or are skeptical, but if it works, it's going to be many times more powerful than the computers we have today, and it can solve huge industry questions, discover new drugs, figure out how to, provide logistic support in a much more effective way for these big companies. So there's a lot of money in it if it works. And, what the developer is talking about are tens of thousands of jobs, and a lot of them are high-paying jobs because this is high emerging tech, a lot of investor money. And I think, what the community has been saying about how this could be good, the promise is if there are jobs that are accessible to people of all education levels, because, if it's only one type of job and it's for people with science degrees, or it's not necessarily accessible to everybody. But if it is a diverse campus, there's hope that, this community that decades ago was very bustling and vibrant because of the steel industry could see a return to that kind of economic life. So that's been the promise.
What do you think? Well, when we say the promise and we look at the possibility, and those are two words that kind of go hand in hand, promise and possibility. Who's going to be, in your reporting and review, the most immediately impacted by the dollars that could come into the community and that could help to fund this?
Yeah, and I think it all depends. I think all depends on how this campus develops, because right now there's research and development. And if it continues to be really focused on these high-level science jobs, I think, you'll see people who are graduating from universities with science degrees in the area potentially be able to get jobs. But, it's also possible these jobs might go to talents from other cities, right? I mean, sometimes these emerging science jobs, they recruit nationally or even broader than that. So you might see people sort of in that sector really benefit, and people in these companies benefit. But if this hub develops to include microelectronics manufacturing, and grow to have technician jobs and jobs available for everybody, and I think another big caveat is how much will they emphasize and agree to local hiring? Because the community is saying we want to see agreement in local hiring. We don't want to hear just sort of this vague promise that you'll hire locally. We want something specific. So I think if that is the case, you have people in the community who are struggling to find jobs. Maybe, their best option is retail, at $15, $16 an hour. Maybe being able to get a job that's $30, $40 an hour as a technician, or in a production plant. So, and I think that another big if is, there are plans to have training available so that not people can develop software skills when they're young, coming out of college or coming out of high school or in high school, learn some software skills, be able to get some of these tech jobs. And I think if that program is successful and has capacity to help a lot of people, you could see some people maybe even, go through that program and be able to get tech jobs, not necessarily at that site, but, potentially in Chicago. And I think that's also a huge benefit,
So education is a word that pops in my mind. And you talked about training. So do we have here locally, from your research and investigation, do we have a platform, a foundation for education for people that would be locally the ones to take advantage of the jobs that could come from this type of community, upswing?
Yeah, and I think the discussion around developing some training program is sort of a sign that what we have is in the schools that are in that neighborhood, maybe it's not quite enough, right? So there's a lot of discussion about how can we create new programs that help people when they finish those programs be able to get a job in tech. And so far, I would say, the discussions have been, well, there's been some field trips that have exposed people to different kinds of tech jobs, maybe in quantum. Maybe there's some internships. But I think because the discussion around we need to create a program that helps people develop software skills is kind of it's because there needs to be something more than what is currently offered at our schools.
Are you seeing any, or what type of support and conversations are you seeing from, our local elected officials, our local and state officials, as well as organizers, in helping that, not only that this specific area of computing and technology grow, but the general community at large grow? What are you seeing there in terms of local, state support and conversation?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of support for businesses. So businesses are getting packages to come to Indiana. To come to Illinois. And in terms of what support there is for the community, I know there are groups that are working together to come up with a community benefits plan, to come up with some kind of community benefits plan, or they call it a quality of life plan. But what the community is asking for from their state and local officials is something a little different. What they want is policies in place to prevent displacement.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see, maybe that could look like property tax freezes. Maybe it could look like some kind of financial help to stay in your home in other ways. And that hasn't really had any traction. There's no, I didn't hear anything from the city about them kind of moving in that direction. And also they're looking for from agreements with companies. They want companies to not only say they're hired locally, but they want communities to commit to agreements of hiring a certain percentage from the local zip codes. And they also, there hasn't been any agreements like that either. So I think there's a gap in what the community is asking for and what is being provided so far. So there's been a lot of discussions and programs and plans about how they can be included, but it's not quite matching up to what's being demanded by some of the community organizers.
Do you think that geography plays, or I shouldn't say do you think, what do you think geography does, or how much does it play in this conversation about developing more tech in the city's south and southeast side?
That's an area that I didn't go as deep into why they picked this location. I know there's a lot of, available land there. So I think that's sort of a very simple way to look at why Southeast Chicago is by, and, it's not that difficult to access from other parts of Chicago. So I don't know sort of more than that, why that specific location, if that's sort of why you're asking why they picked the former steel manufacturing site. And I think, just from talking to some of the businesses and developers, Chicago's also being a big city with a lot of universities, some kind of nearby. It was also an attractive location for that reason.
Got it. Well, I mean, this is one of those things, like you said earlier, that it's in the promising and planning stage, and hopefully not only the city but the county and the state can see the opportunity. But of course, when it comes down to it, it's going to take organizing, but it's also going to take the funding to not only get it up and running, but to make sure that it's sustainable. And the education component that's there is going to be critically important. So we're going to have you back to talk about this as it develops, and we get more information in this space. But I appreciate you being with us this morning, and we appreciate the work that you guys do at the Illinois Answers Project. So keep up the great work, and we look forward to having you back again in the future.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
All right, have a great day and stay warm today. I mean, it's cold out. I'm sure you probably know that already.
I know. I will definitely be staying in.
All right, Bing. Thanks for being with us, and have a great day.
Mm-hmm. You too.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah, guys, one of the things that is always a conversation around community is what is it that the community is doing, any community, but we're talking specifically about Chicago, to grow our brand. And technology is a space where we've got lots of universities here that can put out the people. Silicon Valley doesn't have to represent and be the only place in the country that has technology as a big part of its economy. And I think that Chicago most certainly can represent in that space. Devin, let's try to grab one quick call before we wrap up the show today. David from San Francisco, thanks for being with us. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Richard. Yeah, I would love to ask either of your guests pretty much the same question, and that's how can Chicago or Illinois protect its money from being snapped up by Elon and his treasury scammers? And one of them would have involved local bonds. Mm-hmm. That if Chicago, real quick, everybody gathered up their pocket change and invest in some local bond issues. And you're basically putting your collateral into something that tangibly is in the area and can't be sucked across the state line to D.C., where Trump and his scammers are going to try to run off with it. So, just local bond issues. And it's funny, as the last guest was talking, and she was talking about this new tech world that could come to Chicago. Well, let's make sure that Elon and his tech bros don't want to come and merge with Milton Friedman. And,
No, I mean, it's a good point about the bonds, and definitely, I don't give financial advice on this show, but it's definitely something that would, because it can be designed locally in terms of a municipal bond that's here in the city of Chicago or the county or the state for that matter. It could be one of those things that stems the flow, I guess is the word I'll use. I'm being very careful in how I acknowledge that, but at the end of the day, what needs to happen, and I'll circle back to where we were. And David, thank you for your call this morning, and thank you for your question posed. At the end of the day, guys, what has to happen is we got to start taking back, not just protecting. And so what David said is a great point in terms of protecting the outflow from these these Doge boy federal knuckleheads. But we have to be willing to fight back and take back at the same time. And I want to play one clip before we wrap up that I wanted to get to that speaks a little bit to this fighting back that's got to come from the top down with our DNC. And we've got the new head of the DNC, Ken Martin, that talks about Dems being ready. So Devin's got that one for you.
In 2016, someone said to me, the Republicans are shameless and the Democrats are spineless. The first thing we need to do is we need to stand up. If we're not willing to right now resist Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Elon Musk when the stakes are so high for the American people, how in the hell are anyone in this country going to believe that we would stand up and fight for them if they put us back in power? We have to resist. Now, we can't just live in that space of perpetual resistance. We need to very strenuously resist Donald Trump, and I'll get to that in a moment. But we also need to give people a sense of who we are as Democrats, what we believe in, and what we're fighting for. But as it pertains to the resistance, look at what Democratic attorney generals are doing, like my friend Keith Ellison from Minnesota, right? They're leading the charge right now and taking on Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Elon Musk through the courts, right? Our Democratic congressional members are using the power of their platform to move public sentiment against these cuts that we're seeing in the federal government right now. And it's local elected officials across the country right now who are giving hope to communities who are being ripped apart by this administration right now that they're going to be safe. Democrats are standing up. They're ready for this fight, and I'm happy to lead them.
And that's what I mean by not only resisting, but going on offense. That's where I believe we are, or where we have to be, because we've been put in that position one way or the other. We have to take back. Taking back means fighting. It means standing up. It means stopping the outflow, to Dave's point about, dollars leaving Illinois and going to the federal, to these federal shenanigans from Doge. But it also means taking some stuff back. So that's why I am pushing everybody to be thinking about, let's take back these 3 seats. And I'm going to keep leaning into this because I know how our system works. We take back those 3 seats. That means something. We can start having investigations. We can start calling people into into testimony in front of Congress. And it's an uphill fight. There's no question about it. But that's the fight if you're down with making things happen. And for all of those of who follow this show all over the country, that's what has to happen. We've got to be willing to say, yeah, it doesn't matter that it's a red area in Florida, or it's a predominantly red voting area, most recently in New York. We can change that. Tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about what Governor Hochul in New York is doing. We have some clips in that space, but also want to lean into that's about leaders taking the steps to make things happen. You guys know that she made the decision, or I shouldn't say made the decision. She's made the decision to discuss and have meetings that are serious meetings about something that I think is critically important to our local leaders having an impact on the national policy. And that's where Governor Hochul is looking at using the measures that she can to remove Eric Adams as mayor of New York because of the deal that he cut with Tom Homan and Trump. Bottom line, is it quid pro quo? And we will talk about that on tomorrow's show. We've got some content that I want to share with you guys. But it's been great to be back, and it's been great to have our guest on this morning, Binghui Huang, investigative reporter, and Cook County Commissioner Frank Aguilar. Say that 3 times fast, Devin. I dare you with your sneezy face over there. Y'all send Devin some love. He's fighting a little bit of sinusy, sniffly thing. But thanks for being with us this morning, as always. We appreciate you. And make your life count. Take that deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.